I can round to the nearest hundred. Rounding means you say what a number is close to or about. For example, 171 is about 200, and 513 is about 500. They are close to the numbers they round to. So you take a number and figure out what it's close to. Let's start out reviewing rounding to the nearest 10. So back in lesson 1, you're going to want to watch that because I'm going to go through this quickly. We'll rewatch lesson 1 if you're confused about this slide. 178, let's round it to the nearest 10. Well, you have this number line here. We have 170 below it, 180. It's here in the middle between them. And 178 rounds up to 180 because it's closer. You can see here's 178, here's 180, and all the way over here is 170. 178 is about 180. The other way we talked about is if you look at your rounding place, the tens, and you look next to it, there's an 8. Well, the 8 is the 5 to 9 climb the vine, which means you pick your higher choice. In this case is 180. Now let's round to the nearest 100. Let's remember, 178 rounded to 180, the nearest 10. We kind of take you through this and come back up here. So, when you round to the nearest 100, you want to come up with your 200 choices. So we have the hundreds place is a 1. So 100 and 200. Then in between, I just counted by tens. 110, 120, 130, 140, all the way up to 200. And I found 178 can be between 170 and 180. And I placed it on the number line. At that point, if you just kind of step back and look, well, wow, that's closer to 200. So 178 would round to 200. Note that that's not the same when I round to the nearest 10. And sometimes it just depends on the problem. You'll either be specifically asked to round to the nearest 10 or 100, or you have to make your judgment based on the circumstance. What's more appropriate? Do I need a closer answer with the 180, or can I round to the nearest 100 to get up to 200? And that's going to be up depending on the problem that you'll encounter later on. The other way you can do it also is the whole look at your rounding place. So if you start and you look at that hundreds, and then come up with your choices, which would be 100 and 200, look to the right, you have a 7. That's still that 5 to 9, climb the vine, so you round to the higher place, the higher choice, which would be the 200, and you come up with the same answer as we did when we put it on the number line. Okay. We have 2 examples here I want to work through. The first example is 593. Our choices would be 500 or 600 because our rounding is to the hundreds and you would have 500 or 600. We then can kind of look next door and see that 9, which means it should round up to our higher choice of the 600, 5 to 9 climb the vine. And then you can also put it here on the number line. Here's 550, 560, 70, 80, 90, and 593 would be just past that. At this point, it should be pretty obvious. Wow, that's a lot closer to 600 than it is to 500. So 593 rounds to 600. 449, you have your hundreds place. You can see I already have my 2 choices here, 400 or 500. And now 449, that'd be in the 40s, so 410, 420, 430, 440. But it'll be really close to 450, just like right next to it. So that's tricky. It's almost in the middle. And this is where it's good to know that little trick. 0 to 4, hit the floor. 5 to 9, climb the vine. Well, you have a 4 next door. If you look to the right, there's a 4. And that says hit the floor, so you pick your lower choice. And it actually is just short of the middle, which means it's just a little bit closer to 400. So 449 rounds to 400, which is the lower choice. Sometimes it's referred to as rounding down when you pick the lower choice. Because you are technically going down, but don't get confused with this place value. If you notice, the 100 stays the same when you round down. So it's not going completely down, but it is going a little bit lower. Another way to look at rounding is kind of going backwards. So say I start with 700. I want to know what rounds to 700. What are the numbers that could possibly round to 700. Okay, well, here's a number line with 700 here. And notice how I filled in 600 and 800 as well. And you have 610, 20, 30, 40. Here's 650. And here's 750. Well, the key thing here to remember is if it was 649, it would round down to 600. It would round to the lower choice. But if it was 650, that's halfway, and that tens place is 5 to 9 climb the vine, so that's going to round up. And then 651, 652, so everything from 650 all the way up to 700 would round to 700. It would go up. It would all be 5 to 9 climb the vine. That includes 660, 670, 671, 672. So all of these numbers, there's actually 50 of them in here, including 700. And then from 700 all the way up to not 750, you actually just go up to 749, because 750 itself rounds to 800. But 749 would be the last number that would round down to the lower choice of 700. Like say you did 732. Well, you look at your hundreds place 7, so it's going to be 700 or 800. And you look to the right, it's a 3. That's the 0 to 4 hit the floor, so you pick your lower choice. 700 is where you'd go. So all the numbers from 650 all the way up to 750 would answer that question. What rounds to 700? Well, there's a lot of them. There's exactly 100 choices. 650 through 749. All of these numbers, if rounded to the nearest hundred, would round to 700. Let's do that same thing, but with the tens. It's a little bit smaller range here. What rounds to 90? So here's 90 on the number line. I put 80 and 100, but really your key thing here is this 85, because 84 is going to round back. It's going to round down to 80. And 95 is going to round up to 100. So really 85, well, this with the 5 would say to round up, so it would go up to 90. 86, 87, 88, 89 would all come up to 90. 90 itself, if rounded is the nearest 10, would just stay the same. It would be 90. And then 91. Oh, well, that's closer. 92. All of these numbers would round back to 90, all the way up to 94. So you have 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, and 94. All 10 of these numbers would round to 90 when rounded to the nearest 10. Once you hit 95, you would then round up to 100, and once you go back to 84, you're then rounding back to 80. So what rounds to 90? Well, all of these. I can round to the nearest 100. What I want you to do to practice is to round these numbers to the nearest 100. Here we go, 746, 89, and 813. List both choices on either side. So for example, on 746, one choice would be 700, the next choice would be 800. And select the correct choice based on which number it's closer to.